Oh, I just saw Alan go running away. Oh, here comes Alan.
Okay, unmute, there we are. We continue to buy things for the museum on the internet and wherever. We also get donations. This one arrived last week from a man in Ontario, found it in an attic of a home he was renovating and wanted to donate it. Anybody recognize the time period?
Oh,
This would be a typical 1950s kitchen clock on the back. General Electric Toronto, it's the model LK-12, and this would date probably in the 1950s. My research in old Toronto business directories several years ago indicates that Canadian General Electric's factory for clocks, they closed around 1959 and started maybe as early as 1930. So, and believe it or not, the plastic case, I don't see a crack on it. There's some scratches on the back, and the electric motor still runs. What are you going to buy today that still runs after 60 years or more?
Oh, I know,
yeah. Alan?
So, yeah.
Alan, I see it has the dot to tell when the clock was stopped. Is that right? The red dot?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Power failure indicator. That's right. It was, again, typical in the 40s and 50s after they had self-starting electric motors.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Isn't that odd for General Electric to have that?
Good question. We have probably 20 other models. I haven't compared it yet. Certainly West Clocks and some other companies actually did have that power failure indicator for a few years. So if you woke up in the morning and saw the red up here rather than the white, then it was running, but the time was wrong.
Yes. And I agree with the 60s, and the yellow was definitively.
Well, there's bright yellow, and we've got a red, of course, a bright red, and white was another common color in the catalogs.
Very good.
So that's the sort of thing we continue to get. And this will go up on the wall in our exhibits room. We're closed, museums in Ontario closed to the public. We don't know when we're going to open, maybe in February, but there'll be a little text indicating the donation and the date as well. So you never know what we're going to find, and people want to donate things.
I'm amazed the crystal has no scratches, it looks like.
And that may be glass, but even glass will scratch. That's true. I mean, it's obviously been used. It's been on a wall somewhere. But the condition is surprising for this period. So we've actually sent them a tax receipt for $50. These things sell for 20, 30, 40, 50. Mind you, prices they're asking for everything are crazy these days.
Interesting. Any other show and tells?
I have my hand up. I don't know if anybody else wants to go before me. The only reason I'm showing this now is I planned on doing a presentation of this later, but because Ben is online, Ben Orzelek from Toronto, he's actually helped me with this. So this is I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is a Howard Zero tower clock movement. And it was sold in 1888. It actually has, it was sold with one dial, so one 5-foot dial. So Ben has helped me with it. It was missing the pendulum bob. Gary helped me to get this clock, but so he's provided me with a bob. Ben did. It's a 20-pound bob, and he's also made me a winding key for it. So he's now asked me or challenged me to glue all the screws in this movement. So that'll be my next step. So I've been working on it for about 5 months now. It's coming along though. It's fairly big. It's about 40 pounds. The movement itself is 40 pounds, and the weight that it takes to drive it is 25 pounds with no hands or dial on it. So I don't have a hand or dial, hands or a dial for it yet, but that'll be my next challenge, I guess. Like I said, thanks to, it's a good example of collaboration between the chapters. Ben Orzelek has been helping me with this, and has been a great resource and very positive, and just the knowledge amongst the chapters has been very helpful. So anyways, I will bring this in person when we get back to being together. But for now, that's where it's at.
Harry, have you told your wife that you're building the tower in by your house?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a good question, because Ben said, "Oh, you should try to get like the 5-foot dial. Can you fit a 5-foot dial in your house?" And I thought, I could probably fit it in my house. but I
Not
don't
get
know
away
if
with
that
it.
will go over so well. So we'll see what happens.
Don't you need 2 dials?
This only was sold with one dial. This was
Oh,
sold
geez.
with one 5-foot dial with a. So it had one 5-foot dial with a gas regulator sold with it for illumination. So it would have been sitting on probably the gable end of a building. Somebody asked me to turn it sideways, so I don't have the pendulum on it now because it's very heavy, but it's fairly big movement.
Yeah. Hey, Grant. So what's the provenance? Where was it for the longest time? In what city or what building? Thanks.
Oh, good question. So it was sold to the Atlantic City, Pennsylvania Railway, and it was installed at the depot on Walnut Street in Philadelphia. So I actually have a map of the place. I have a gentleman at the museum down there in the Pennsylvania Railway Museum is going to help me try to find a picture of the building if there's one around. So that's where it was. It was sold in 1888 for $260. So with the dial in the hands and the gas regulator as well. So quite large, and actually, oddly enough, this was presented at one time at the this chapter back a long time ago because it was originally owned by Dick Witherington. So there's an old newsletter that he presented it back in, I think, probably the late 80s, mid 80s. So, but it's sat in his basement for quite a while. So.
Thanks, Grant.
Yeah.
Grant,
Somebody just asked about the movement. Is it 8 days? So the way it's set up right now, I have it on, this again is one of Ben's. I'll tilt this down a bit. You can see the stand that I have it on. It's made out of a steel pipe, 6-inch steel pipe, and it's sitting on a brake rotor actually of a car. So it's welded together. Then the top is welded on. This is Ben's design. So with this length that I have in here, it'll only run for about 3 days. So I guess the higher up you have it, the longer you can run it, obviously. So it could be an 8-day. You just have to get it up 8 days high. So.
This would have been a church tower? Like, is that the kind of movement it is?
Yeah, it could have been, but it wasn't for this one. This was sold to a railway depot, but similar. Yeah, so this one has a takeoff, and Ben is online too, so he may actually correct me on some of this if I'm wrong, but this is where the mechanism for the dials would hook on. So this would have been horizontal out to a dial, most likely. A lot of times you see this piece on top, and this will go up to four dials then. So, but this one was sold just with one dial, so it would have went straight out to one dial, but it could run up to four dials for sure.
So then I guess like a 20-foot drop on your weight would not really be a problem.
No, not at all. No, because I have 6 foot of cable on here, and the size of the drum, it only, it takes up just a small fraction of the space on the drum.
So with the 4 dials,
Attic?
I'm sorry?
Are you moving it into your attic so it has a bigger drop?
I've heard of people actually making holes in their floor to drop it into the basement. I don't think that's going to happen either, but I think I'll just wind it every 3 days.
Good.
so would the 4 dials indicate different time zones?
No, they're all, you could activate this one because everything that runs off of this clutch here, it's adjusted here. So you pull this out, you can actually change the time. So this would change all the time hooked up to this dial. So if you had them set for different time zones, it was going back to Don's, it'd be all relative to that. But because this separate drive, I'm not sure what this had to do with Ben and I have been having discussions about this. This separate drive is direct onto the power up here. So this could have had another clutch for something else, but I suspect it probably had something to do with the gas regulator that came with this movement to light the dial, because it was a illuminated dial that was on it.
Is it a 3,600 beats per hour mechanism, like a standard grandfather?
You know what? That's a good question, and I don't know. Ben would probably know if he cares to chime in.
The pendulum would be what? How long would the pendulum be designed to be?
The pendulum is about. I'll just get it here. So this is the pendulum.
Wow.
That's a harpoon.
Yeah, so it's about on my tall, very short body. So it's about 4 feet, I guess.
1 meter, exactly 1 meter. This is dead beat escapement and is a 1 second beat.
So yeah, that's 3,600 beats per hour.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. Standard grandfather movement.
Yes.
Thank you, Ben.
Gary Grant, I'm telling you, this is a superb project, and I admire your enthusiasm, and I'm congratulating you on a great job. Really good job.
That's that enthusiasm I was talking about that Ben has. I get the sense that that's how Ben lives his life. Positive.
No, but I think you have also enthusiasm. You're a great guy for that job like this. Yes.
Thank you. So that's it. But I will bring this in person whenever we get back together.
How's your back?
So I have,
I have something.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, you were first.
Okay. So this is a clock from the 1930s. It's electromechanical. And it sort of reminded me from what Don was talking about, because it's a digital clock where the dials rotate. And I remember seeing an episode of Star Trek, the original version, in which time went backwards. And what they had the clock on the bridge of the Enterprise was this type of movement. And I don't know whether they put it into reverse or just round the tape back, but you could actually see the dials moving back in reverse. And so this is sort of the bottom in which you can set the time. So this is from, what is it, the Lawson Electric Clock.
It's 14 hours.
Of Pasadena, California.
Does it work currently?
No, I have to get into it without electrocuting myself. But it's in very good shape. I bought it off eBay a number of years ago.
There's that bit of an art deco look to it.
Yes, yeah. That's that.
And Robert?
I've got something here, kind of different. I like to write. I like to read as well. So this is an old book I picked up about a month ago, 2 months ago. And I'll try to show you the title page. Traité général de l'horlogerie, des horloges. This was by a Benedictine monk called Jacques Alexandre. It's kind of a classic book of French horology. This one's from 1734. And so this monk, because a lot of religious people back then were quite experts in clockmaking and horology, and he decided to write a book about it. And it's one of the first ones in French to cover the subject in such detail. And I always wanted to own it. So, and it has interesting, all kinds of interesting chapters in it. Talks about solar clocks, water clocks, and then the wheel clocks, how they came about. And also movements that were made back then to follow the movement of the planets. And and then clocks of kind of middle volume, and then kind of small clocks, repetition, and then watches. This book also, the last 40 pages or so, has one of the first bibliographies about horology that is very good. So talks about all the old books in Latin and so on and so forth. So I was quite thrilled. But the reason I wanted to show it to you is because there's an ex libris on there. Can you see that?
Yes.
Does anyone know who Murray Gell-Mann is?
No.
Invented gel pens?
No. So this is to relate back to your presentation a bit, Don. Murray Gell-Mann was a physicist, a Nobel Prize winner. He's actually the guy who came up with the concept of the quark, the micro
Really?
atomic particle. So Murray Gell-Mann, yes. So this was in his library. He lived in San Antonio the last years of his life. He died maybe 2 years ago, which is how this book wound up in a local bookstore in San Antonio, and I was able to get it on 8 books. He was an extremely well-read man, books on all kinds of subjects. So I kind of get a kick flipping through it and saying this Nobel Prize winner also kind of went through this book and getting some information, whatever he was getting out of it, maybe just personal interest. So, yeah, so Traité des Horloges by Père Alexandre, previously owned by Maria Jal Mann. There you go.
Robert, can I ask, because it's the age of it, I would have thought it would be rare. It's funny that you would find it in a bookstore. So how rare is it? Or you just happen to be lucky to come across it knowing what you were looking for?
I knew what I was looking for. I tried to find old horology books like that. This one came up on Abe Books. If you're not familiar with Abe Books, it's a chain of used booksellers around the world. So you do a keyword search or author search. There was actually a couple of other ones on there, I think, a couple of other copies, but this one was fairly reasonably affordable, a few $100s. But I like the Murray Gell-Mann connection.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I like to collect some of those old books, and some of them have been. Here's just very quickly. This is a book by Berthoud. Ferdinand Berthoud was a very famous French clockmaker, watchmaker. He made chronometers, and he wrote a two-volume essay on horlogerie. So, but you can also buy it. It's been basically scanned, and so you get a modern copy. This was done in the 70s. So sometimes you don't necessarily need to get the old books, which can be quite expensive, but you can get some of these scanned versions, especially for French horology if you're into that. So I don't know, I get a kick out of that, old horological books.
Is there a Kindle version?
Of which one? Alexandre or Berthoud?
Well, I guess if they've been scanned, then they can become ebooks.
A lot of those, most of those old books actually are available on the internet for free of charge, either on Google Books or some country libraries. I've scanned them, very good scans, including the fold-out diagrams. So you can get them for free. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like to be able to flip through a book. And so that means something to me, especially something that old. You try to imagine who owned it, who learned from it, and so on and so forth.
You mentioned Abe Books, Advanced Book Exchange out of Vancouver. They're included in an even bigger one for searching old books on the internet, and that's Bookfinder, all one word, bookfinder.com. They've got something like 10 million books listed from sellers all over the world.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And if it's on Abe Books, it will show up on Bookfinder.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Robert, I have the French horological book, very, very old, and right now is hidden, but I would like to show it to you on the show and tell on next Zoom meeting. Okay, maybe you would be interested in it. Okay,
I very well might be. I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Yes.